Creepy real-life stories. Story 1 lived in an old house converted to apartments. The attic was huge. It was essentially a full story above the second floor. My bedroom closet was the space under the attic stairs. The front hallway and staircase of the building wasn't really used, and all the doors leading into it were locked. The door leading to the attic had 3 heavy padlocks on it. One night, as I am falling asleep, I hear heavy, slow footsteps coming down the stairs. I can hear the wood in the stairs creaking under the weight. Then the footsteps stop at the bottom, and I hear nothing for a while. Just as I let out a sigh of relief, that the noise stopped, a huge pounding thud hits the back side of the door leading to the attic. It slams the door so hard, I can hear the padlocks bashing against the door as they fall back down. I jump out of bed and open my closet, staring at the backside of the stairs, listening to this insane smashing noise. I am imagining some monstrous thing slamming the door, and I freak out and leave my room just as the noise stops. My mom and the neighbors are both woken up by this. I tell them what happened, and they all look around strangely. People call out to the attic door and ask if anyone is inside or if they need help getting out. No response. Eventually everyone goes back inside their apartments. No more noises that might or ever again, and no one ever left the attic that night as far as I know. Story 2, I was a stupid 16-year-old. One day I was driving towards my girlfriend's house, and along the way I saw a man walking the same way off to the side of the road, carrying a large sea bag, what we called them in the Navy, the large green rucksack. It was a hot day, mid-90s, so I stopped and offered him a ride. He was heading to the same town I was, but out a back road you come to when you first enter town. He told me he hadn't been home in a long time and that his father had died, and he wanted to see his grave. He was an odd guy for sure, but seemed harmless enough if not a little out there. Said he was a boat pilot on the river. Showed me his ID for some reason. Really wish I remembered the name. He never told me the name of the road, just pointed to it when we got there. I turned down it, and we didn't really talk much from then. He kept telling me it was up ahead. I assumed a cemetery, but we just kept going. I was probably 5 or 6 miles out now. Hadn't passed a home for the last couple miles. Yes, by this point I was nervous as fuck. Eventually, he told me to pull into this gravel drive on the left, which ended up just leading to only a dilapidated shack. Strangely, he got out of the car and walked towards the shack, then turned around and faced me. Just stood there looking at me. I threw it in reverse and got the fuck out of there. Last I saw of him, I don't know if he had a change of heart or what, but I've always felt in my gut that I narrowly missed being murdered, or worse, and buried in the hills of West Virginia. I often considered driving back out there just to see if I could find the place I took him to, but it was so long ago and so far out in the middle of nowhere, I probably never would. Story 3, I was driving a long trip, as we were moving states at the time. I had been on the road a long time and got super tired. I decided to pull over on an off-ramp to take a nap. Luckily, I also had my 2 dogs with me at the time. I woke up to them barking in a panicked state. I saw this man walking up to my car with his hand behind his back. I remember the look on his face as menacing, but also surprised. I'm guessing my dogs were laying down with me, and they popped up barking like crazy, something he was probably not expecting. I immediately noticed that he had parked a long ways back and walked up to me like he didn't want to wake me with the approach of his vehicle. We made eye contact in my side mirror, and the look on his face was terrifying. My car was a hybrid, so when I pushed start, I don't think he realized it was on. He started walking at a faster pace toward me when I put it into drive and sped off. I ducked my head as I didn't know if he had a gun or not. When I was far away, I looked back, and it looked like he had ran back to his vehicle. I sped away really fast and intentionally got off 2 exits down and changed routes. I didn't know if I should call the non-emergency line or not, or what they could do really. His vehicle was far enough away. I couldn't tell what it was or color for that matter. To this day, I will never stop and rest. I make sure I have enough rest to make the whole trip. You hear horror stories of random murders that happen, and I genuinely believed it almost happened to me. I don't know if his intentions were bad or not, or if he had a weapon, but his actions were definitely off, and I didn't stick around to find out. Story 4. Back in 2001, I had a weird bad dream where I was on a small plane with a bunch of people who I didn't know that started to crash. I woke up before it did. I somehow wasn't like panicking or anything, weirdly just woke up with a start like, okay, that wasn't fun. I remember waking up to my clock or whatnot right around when it happened. Kinda shook, but I knew it was just a bad dream, so I got on with the morning. I worked at a record store at the time, ticket/info counter, and got in and saw one of my workmates, more of an R&B fan. I was still am a metalhead, so I didn't really know much in the way of R&B, looking sad, and he told me that Aaliyah had just died in a plane crash. A small plane. After I read about the details, I was kind of freaked out about it. Again, I didn't listen to her. I couldn't have named a song from her at the time if you asked me. The only R&B I could really name was like a few 90s New Jack Swing bands because they were all over MTV back when we watched it a lot. I wasn't associated with the genre at all, so it was completely left field. I think it was probably just one of those one in a million coincidences. Maybe the radio had mentioned it, though I listened to the local heavy metal/hard rock station in Philly. But for me, it was creepy as hell. Story 5. When I was in my early teens, I went wandering along a riverside in Irish countryside. It was quite an isolated area, and there were lots of old, ruined, interesting structures along the way. I came across a large old circular stone frame of a watchtower maybe 3 stories high, in the middle of a shady copse of large trees, very hidden away. As I was exploring it, I turned a corner and noticed a man in the distance walking towards the tower. He looked very creepy, and I felt very vulnerable, so I didn't want to make contact, but the river was behind me, so I couldn't move away. Instead, I just hid behind the circular stone structure. There were small holes in the structure that I could peek through, and I watching him continue to approach until he was just on the other side opposite me, about 4 m away. There was no way he could have seen or heard me at this stage. He just stood there for about a minute completely silently. Then he started slowly walking around the structure. I was so on edge, and trying to work out whether I should run or continue to hide. I just tiptoed my way around silently, so he couldn't hear or see me. We both circled the structure entirely, until we were in the same position as before. My heart was pounding at this stage. He stood there for another minute or so silently. Then I heard him undo his belt and urinate on the ground. When he finished, he started to move away. I heard him take about 3-4 steps through scrunchy leaf litter, then dead silence again. I was able to peer over and couldn't see where he went, so I just stayed there for another 10 minutes before I practically sprinted home. Story 6. This happened around the mid-'80s. I was around 10 years old at the time, and my sister around 17. She and a few of her friends wanted to do a seance. My mother and father had already gone to bed. My sister had read some books and written down something like an incantation or a spell. I don't really know. I just know she wanted to talk to the ghost of Elvis. As a young, curious boy, I wanted to be part of what they were doing, and they let me play along. In the dining room, she lit a candle and placed it in the center of the table. We sat around the dining room table holding hands as she began reading what she had written down. My mother had heard what we were up to and wanted to give us a good scare, so she snuck down the hall and was planning to jump out and surprise us. She listened and waited for the perfect time before she could jump out and scare us, and immediately, as my sister was finishing up the words written on the paper or cat, went screaming by my mom. Now, when I say screaming, I mean this cat was running for dear life and literally screaming. There was a crash which scared us all, so we jumped up from the table, turned the lights on, and the cat had run into the fireplace. No fire. Then ran into the closed window head first, jumping from the sill and eventually slamming into a wall and knocking itself out. Of course, we rushed over to the cat to check on it, and it woke back up. My mother wrapped it in a blanket because it was claws out, eyes wide open and hissing at whatever was there we couldn't see. The cat eventually stopped freaking out. None of us slept that night, and I'll never mess around with anything supernatural again. I don't think it was Elvis. Story 7. My mom has had mobility issues for a really long time. After college, I stayed home to save money, and to help my mom. I was your standard basement dweller, but my mom was situation on the other side of the house. I thought it would be a good idea to set up an intercom system so she didn't have to move around so much or rely on her cell phone. She hated using the cell phone. It was pretty cool because I stayed up late so I could get her a snack or help her get a book. Just normal midnight stuff. Well, one winter, my parents decided to visit family in Louisiana, so I had the place to myself. So I spent the first night enjoying myself and staying up later than usual. Eventually, I got tired enough to decide to crawl into bed. I was brushing my teeth. I had my own bathroom attached to my bedroom downstairs, and I heard static coming from the intercom. I thought maybe it was on the fritz. I went over to give it a little smack, but as soon as I walked up to it, the static stopped, and I shit you not, I heard my mom's voice ask me to come upstairs and help her. She and my dad were 1000% gone from the house. I ripped the fucking thing off the wall and stayed up all night. Decided to stay with a friend until my parents got back. Never happened again, but it fucked me up for a while. Story 8. I was in Boy Scouts as a teen, and we always would take a trip to this gun club near the Pine Barrens in the winter. I'm pretty sure all the dads and leaders just wanted to shoot guns and drink beer, but us kids loved it. Looked forward to it every year because we didn't have any planned activities. It was just a free pass to go fuck around. In one particular year, a group of kids I normally hung out with decided to build a bridge on a little creek that wasn't too far from the lodge. They got up pretty early to go out there, but I decided to sleep more and catch up to them later. When I woke up, I headed out to meet up with them. Now I'm not really sure what compelled me to do this, or why I was so confident that I'd find my friends, because I'm terrible with directions. But I guess I was just excited to do something fun. Anyway, I marched out into a direction I firmly believed was where I should go, and the woods of the Pine Barrens slowly closed around me. If you've ever been in the Pine Barrens, and I mean in the motherfucking Pine Barrens, the trees grow so close together that midday turns basically to dusk. Sometimes pitch black if you go to the right spots. And sure enough, it was like walking in a twilight evening. Now this didn't scare me because I've been in these woods a half-dozen times with my friends, but I did stop several times to try, and fail, to get my bearings for the right direction to the stream. Eventually I started to hear the sounds of water, so I got a lot of my confidence back that I was going the right direction. I did find a stream, but no friends, so I figured I must be further upstream than they were. So I headed downstream, further into the barrens. As I walked deeper in the woods, the trees started to get thicker and closer together. And it was getting darker because of that. Eventually, the stream turned into almost a swamp. I knew at that point I had gone the wrong way, but something caught my eye in them. Horse hoof prints. Now I've had people tell me what I probably saw was a moose print or a deer print, but I know the difference between a fucking deer and a goddamn horse. I was also at the height of my Boy Scout-ness, so I saw horse hoof print in a place that had no reason to have horse hoof prints. Most wild horses stick to larger clearings or main sources of water. But this is what made me absolutely sure that this was wrong, the walking pattern, where the other half of what should have been horse hoofs were the biggest wolf prints I've ever seen. The spacing made no fucking sense. It would mean the front or back was horse and the other side wolf. At the moment I found these prints and made all of the realizations that nothing was adding up, I heard the crack of a branch being snapped. This far deep in the woods you can sometimes hear sounds from a half-mile away, but this sounded almost next to me. In the direction of the tracks, I heard this scraping sound, like metal on tree bark. I was having a hard time seeing much of anything that wasn't 20 feet in front of me, because the motherfucking Pine Barrens, so I was straining to look. I had to look because I was terrified at this point. And in the shadows, I could see the shape of something on all fours. The way it was positioned, I couldn't tell if it was looking at me or away from me, much less see any definition of features. But it was big, and the body just didn't make sense like this misshapen /body. It moved in this almost half-shaken jaunt. The tree branches snapping and cracking each time it stepped. I just started walking backwards very slowly, looking back only to check that I wouldn't trip. As soon as it was hidden in the trees, I finally turned around and ran back upstream. Made my way back to the lodge, somehow, and stayed inside the rest of the weekend. Found out later that I had gone in the completely wrong direction of where my friends went, obviously. Still gives me the creeps thinking about it when I go camping, even all the way out here in AZ. Story 9, my ex's house she rented in Norwalk, CA was haunted. I heard disembodied voices screaming in my ear. Felt hands touching me that weren't there. Pictures would fall off the wall only when we mentioned the haunting. One time I was going to use the shared restroom in the front of the home in the middle of the night, because her personal restroom was out of order. I was walking through the pitch-black house. It got suo-dark at night, bumbling through the kitchen with my arms outstretched when I felt a tickle on my forearm. I quickly switched on the lights, and to my surprise it was a tiny spider. I looked up and the entire kitchen ceiling was covered in spiders. Like hundreds of black spiders, you could barely see the ceiling through the mass of 8-legged freaks. I got a distinct feeling of terror and dread. I switched the lights back off and ran to the restroom and back. When I tried to tell my ex about it the following morning, I went to the kitchen to see if there were any webs or leftover spiders. There was no evidence any of this ever happened, and I felt gaslighted. I swear the spiders were a physical manifestation of the evil in that home. Though I'm sure it can be explained naturally, I could feel the supernatural in that room. I know what I saw and felt was real. All the weird happenings stopped the moment we left that house. I've experienced no haunting issues since. I also have had ghostly encounters in Nashville, TN, when I was in college, but they're not as creepy, actually kinda funny. Story 10 got another weird one from when I was little. Friend was having a sleepover party for their birthday. Their mother got a babysitter for the night as they headed out late to go hit the bars. Yeah, not a great look for your own kid's birthday, but whatever. When it came time to sleep, we were all crammed into his bedroom with 4 kids in the bed and 5 more in sleeping bags on the floor. Bedroom was messy and covered in toys. Whole house was covered in stray toys, actually. As we are beginning to get tired, we start in on the ghost stories. First couple are mild, but then the birthday boy starts talking about seeing weird things happen in their room. The one we are all currently in, like toys moving on their own or weird noises at night. This starts to freak some kids out a little bit. So it gets real quiet. Just as everyone is about done with story time, the light bulb in the only lamp in the room explodes. Big pop, small flash, glass shards. That causes a panic and everyone runs out of the room and upstairs screaming, to where the babysitter was watching TV. The house was a kind of condo/apartment with 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom connected by a hallway on the first floor, and a living room and kitchen/dining area on the second, built in the late 70s. The babysitter was not amused, as she was trying to watch some R-rated movie and didn't want a load of kids hanging around. She told us we needed to go back to bed. Nobody looked like they wanted to go downstairs. I decided this would be a cool moment to show how brave I was and volunteered to go first. I got to the bottom of the stairs and looked back. Everyone was crowded around the top waiting to see what happened next. I suddenly got nervous, feeling all alone. The hallway had inset lighting that projected bright lights straight down. Looking into the bedroom, it was just pure flat darkness, no street lights or anything to give a glimmer of what was inside. I decided to test the waters by throwing something into the room before waking in myself. The bottom of the stairs was a mess with my friend's bike, some shoes and some toys all in a heap. I saw a plastic dinosaur. It was an Apatosaurus, long neck, long tail. It was a bulky, weird thing to throw, so I threw it into the room with an underhand toss by gripping its tail. It sailed into the darkness, but didn't make a sound. That confused me for a moment because I knew the approximate area I threw it towards was covered in plastic junk, and it should have made a clatter when it landed. A few seconds go by and nothing happens. I turn towards the group at the top of the stairs and say, "I think it's Saw." And right in the middle of saying the word safe, I catch movement out of the corner of my eye in the direction of the bedroom. The toy dinosaur I tossed comes flying out of the room at an incredible speed, sailing right past my head. It impacts the wall right next to me and punches a huge hole in the drywall. I look down and see the dinosaur sitting on top of the bike's wheel spokes, covered in white dust, surrounded by chunks of plaster. Without looking up to see who or what threw it, I ran up the stairs. Everyone is screaming and freaking out, and the babysitter is mumbling for a minute before calming everyone down enough to tell them they can sleep upstairs. We hang out wide awake until the mother comes home. She sees the hole in the wall and immediately starts demanding answers. The babysitter takes her aside, and I overhear her say that she doesn't know what happened, but she knows it wasn't any of the kids' fault. The mom just looks annoyed and confused by this, but must have accepted the babysitter vouching for us since my friend didn't get into trouble. The one extra creepy thing is how the dinosaur toy exited the room. It was flying through the air perfectly straight, with all 4 feet pointed straight down, not even a hint of a tumble. The air around it made a whooshing noise, it was moving so fast. I will never forget that image of it coming out of the room like that.